Hey, what is up, everyone? This is Jake Hofer with Exodus Trail Cameras. Thanks for tuning in this week's episode of Trail Cam Radio. This week we have John Eberhart as our guest. John is a whitetail legend in every sense of the word. He has over 50 Pope and Young whitetails, over 30 in the state of Michigan. And in this interview, we talk all about some questions that you guys had that we shared with John. Talk about his early hunting mentor, who was a pretty interesting character, and a bunch of other stuff. We talk a little bit about the moon. So we hope you guys enjoy it. John will be on Whitetail Cribs here very shortly on this channel, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. And let's go ahead and get right into the interview.
Lights, camera,
follow the trail.
ready to shoot.
If you know where a deer's bedding and you know where he's eating, that deer should be dead.
Camera!
If you're passive on a deer, what you're doing is you're teaching them.
I've got 30 bucks in the Michigan record book. Everyone but one has had at least one previous wound on his body. Some had as many as 4.
Trail Cam Radio from the guys at Exodus.
All right, we're live in probably one of the most unique places we've recorded before. We are on a back 40 here with John Eberhart in Michigan. We recorded a Whitetail Cribs episode, grabbed some lunch, and then you went out to go show us one of your stand locations where you killed 2 Michigan record book bucks.
Yep, 2 book bucks.
And I have to kind of introduce you here. So right now you hold the most viewed video on our YouTube channel right now.
Oh.
And it has almost I think over 280,000 views, and you're part of every single intro of this podcast. So we have 3 different sound bites. You're one of them. So thank you for linking up with us once again.
Oh, my pleasure.
And we're super excited to kind of burn through some questions and get your thoughts on some things.
Definitely my pleasure.
Was that all right introduction, or is there?
Yes.
Because I mean, sitting here and talking with you and going to the store, you're kind of a local legend. I don't know if there was one person that didn't say, "Hey, John, how you doing?"
Yeah, I know most of the people up there. Yeah. But the only other thing, I'm pretty proud of the fact that there isn't anybody else in the country that has got 50 record book bucks from public and knock on doors for free permission properties.
31 from Michigan,
31
19
Michigan,
out of
19 out of state. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the ones from Michigan came off 19 different properties. So I'm not like hunting a spectacular piece of public or knock on doors property. You know, it's a lot of properties. I probably set up and hunted over 200 different properties in my hunting, because I'm always losing and gaining new permission. You know, this year I only have two permission spots. The rest is public, but it's just a different game doing it that way. And I don't think anybody else in the country can make that claim.
Not anyone that I know of at this point. And I mean, that's where, when we were driving over here to this farm, you were talking about some of the county records, talking about a deer that was dead. And, you know, the 165, it would have been a county record. And then where the store we were at, that county record's like, what, 151?
151 is the county
and so,
record.
Because we see YouTube comments, we talk to a lot of people, and people say, well, there's just not big deer here. And I grew up in Illinois, so I don't know. Like, you know, I'm just thinking, that seems kind of crazy. Of course, there has to be some big deer out there. But for the existence of those counties, and there has not been a deer bigger, you know, killed bigger than that, that just proves.
Well, you have to keep in mind, not a lot of deer survive to 3.5 because of the gun and bull pressure. We're a 2-buck state. And not only that, we have very sandy soil. You know, it wasn't a couple thousand years ago. This state was covered with water. So it's all sandy soil. So, you know, I kind of look at antler growth the same way as I look at crop yields. You know, you look at this potato field out here, and they haven't even hardly started, and it's August. So, you know, you go to Kansas, Iowa, Illinois, you know, the Midwest, and their crop yields are about twice per acre what you get here. And that's because of the minerals in the soil. You just don't have it here. And it's the same minerals that actually grow antlers, too. So it's not just that we don't have a lot of older class deer. Even I shot a 5.5-year-old out of this tree as well. It was 105 inches. So our deer just don't grow as big of antlers per same age group. So we've got several negatives. We're a 2-buck state because we've got so many gun hunters and so many bow hunters. You know, very few deer make it to 3.5 years old, and even the ones that do, it's not uncommon to shoot a 3-year-old in Michigan that doesn't have 100-inch antlers. So there's a lot of things negative about it, but I love the challenge. I just love hunting in Michigan, even though it sucks. That's the most honest way I can put it.
It's the truth. Yeah. No, there's no. It's funny. As we were walking through that store, and
Jay's Sporting Goods in Clare, just seeing all those people come over and shake your hands, we're like, this guy's, John's a local legend here. But your claim that you just made at the beginning of the podcast, I said the same thing. I don't know if it was to Jake or Cameron. I said I'd put money on it that I don't know there's a guy in the country that has more book bucks on these types of properties than you.
Yeah, obviously all the TV guys have a lot more book bucks and they're a lot bigger, but they're hunting like zoo-type settings where there's no competition.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know of anybody. If anybody does, speak up or forever hold your peace.
Leave it in the comments section.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd love to hear it, yeah.
So I know one thing that you've kind of listed in the past is, the amount of Pope and Young book entries per state and hunter densities that we're kind of talking about here on our commutes throughout the day. And let's say this is a question for someone that is in a Michigan or Pennsylvania where there's not a lot of big deer, and they just want to kill a big deer. Where are you sending them, and what region of the country are you sending them?
State-wise?
Yeah, state and region of the state.
I would probably pick the number. If they could go in early November, I would probably pick Nebraska because I think Nebraska would be the easiest state to get permission on. So you'd have some public land options because Nebraska has about 15,000 bow hunters. Kansas has 20-some thousand bow hunters. And Kansas gets a lot of recognition on TV. So it's hard to find private property to get free permission from in Kansas because everything's leased. Same way in Iowa. Nebraska still, because it doesn't get a lot of press, it's exactly the same type of property as Kansas. It's a lot of plainsy area, sagebrush when you get into central Nebraska, southern central Nebraska. Where I've hunted in Kansas, I'm 30 minutes south of Nebraska. So Nebraska is just a state that would be a lot easier to get free permission, plus you'd have public land an option as well. And Nebraska's in the top 3 as far as P&Y size per licensed bow hunter. It's Kansas, Iowa, and Nebraska are the top 3.
Got it.
That's some good insight.
Advice.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yep.
I expect you to say Illinois, Iowa,
Yeah.
Kansas.
Yeah, well, the only reason it wouldn't be Illinois is because Illinois, you would be totally 100% stuck on public. If I were going to say a state where you would be stuck strictly on public, I'd probably say Missouri, because Missouri has a lot of archery-only places on public land, and that evens the playing field, because gun hunters aren't in there blistering everything during gun season. Illinois does have some, but I don't think they have as much as Missouri.
Right.
I don't think Michigan has any archery-only public land, none that I've ever heard of anyway. So, I said Nebraska because I think it'd be much easier to order some plat books and then just cold call, because most of the plat books that come from those low resident states have the phone numbers of the actual property owners. And I know to most of the young viewers, most people have cell phones. But most of the big-time property owners in those states are still older people, and they have landlines.
Right.
So those landlines still, their phone numbers are in the plat books, and you can cold call, as long as you lend some air of seriousness, and you're going to be maybe you and one other guy, where you're not going to go out there and say, I've got 4 guys coming, can I hunt your property? That ain't going to happen. If you say I'm coming out here by myself or with one other buddy, I think you got a lot better chances in Nebraska because it doesn't get beat up like Kansas and Iowa have.
And you've made some contacts and gained some permission by doing exactly that, looking at those plat books, cold calling. Statistically, how successful have you been? Is that
pretty successful. The first time I ever went out of state was 1997, and because I don't gun hunt, I'm bored during gun season, which our gun season opens November 15th. So I ordered some I bought one of those big DeLorme maps of Iowa, because that's where I wanted to go. And I did some research, and I was looking for areas that had a lot of watersheds running through them. So I looked for counties that had a lot of watersheds, because I knew when I was going to go, the crops would be down. So the deer were going to be more congregated in those watersheds, because they usually have drainages and weeds and brush along the edges. So it's going to be transition zones for deer when the crops are down. And I ordered plat books, and I was shocked when I ordered plat books, called the county seats and ordered the plat books. I was kind of shocked it had the phone numbers. So I just cold called, and I would say I probably made 20 phone calls and got 3 property permissions.
It's pretty good odds.
pretty damn good?
And then some other ones, the time I hunted in Missouri one time, shot a 160-inch 10-point, and I always talk to the girl at the county seat. When I call the county seat to ask, to pay for them to send me a plat book, I say, hey, they talk to farmers all the time. Hey, you don't know anybody that might have some property a guy could come and bow hunt. That's what I'm ordering these plat books for. And this one girl did, and she gave me the guy's number, and I called him, and he had 3,000 acres, and he had a 40 set aside someplace because I was going down there during the gun season to bow hunt, and he didn't let anybody gun hunt that 40, and he let me bow hunt it, and that's the one where I hunted in the rain for 4 days, daylight till dark, and shot that big, huge
Stud.
wide 23.5-inch wide 10 point.
Yeah, awesome deer. Cool, very cool.
But
story.
I mean, that was just, you just got to talk to people. I mean, one of my Kansas properties, I used to rep for Buck Knives. I'm a sales rep in the hunting industry, and I rep for Buck Knives. And when I was at a sales meeting, I was talking to one of the customer service ladies. And I said, "Where are you from, Nancy?" And she said, "Well, I'm from Kansas." Well, the bell automatically went off in my head, and I said, "Well, do you still have family there?" And she said, "No, not really." I said, "So there's no property there anymore?" And she said, "No." Well, my brother still owns 900 acres, and he's a bird hunter. He manages it for bird hunting. And I said, "Do you think he'd let anybody bow hunt there?" Because I was going by myself. And she said, "Well, I don't know. I'll call him and ask him." And she called him, and he said, "Yeah, as long as he's not there while we're bird hunting, he didn't care." So I'm still hunting that piece of property. But just talking to friends, just because they live in Ohio where you're from, or they live in Illinois or wherever, doesn't mean they don't have relatives or they're from a different state or know somebody from a different state that they may network and you might get some hunting permission. You just never know unless you talk to people.
Right.
The person at the gas station that you're paying the gas, or at the bar, the waitress, everybody. You just talk to everybody. You just got to be, not shy.
When you go out on these out-of-state trips, are you going to the bars and restaurants to try to pick up any local knowledge, or are you just...
I thought you were going to say pick up any local girls. I'm too old for that.
No, but go
no,
in and
I
try,
don't.
You just pretty much stick to your plan or wherever you're at.
I stick to my plan because it's pretty rare that I'm going to talk to anybody in Kansas or Iowa that's going to
tell you a
that's
Michigan
going to
guy.
know more about deer hunting.
Uh-huh.
And that's one of the issues, actually, is when you do get permission. I always go to a place where I've always got public land as a backup.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to the actual property owners, they always want to, "Well, why don't you stick around for dinner, or why don't we get in the tractor or truck and I'll drive you around, show you where the deer are." And that's the last thing I want to do.
Uh-huh.
I want to be friendly and talk to them for an hour or so, and then let me loose. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And you just go do your thing, because a lot of times those farmers, they don't really know what's on the property. Once in a while one of them will, but they're busy all the time, and they don't see what's the subtleties that are going on in the cover and stuff. And they obviously don't have cameras out, so you just want to go out and do your thing. And it's super simple out there to scout, because when you go out there and it's mid-November, there's scrapes and rubs everywhere. There's just deer sign everywhere because there's so many mature bucks, and everything works. Rattling works, decoys work, grunt calls work, doe bleeds work. It's not like here where you got to walk on eggshells every time you take a step, and you can't do any rattling sequences. It's got to be sparring sequences, and it's got to be at the right time of day and the right type of situation. Out there, just everything works all the time. So it's just a different game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of fun because, on this property here, the last 2 years, there has not been a shooter buck on this property for me or the other two guys that are hunting it.
Right.
And they have cameras out, so they actually get photos, and hopefully this year there will be. We'll see.
Yeah.
When you're planning most of these out-of-state trips that sound like they're third week in November or even late season, I think most people that are planning out-of-state hunts are the first part of October, right when seasons are opening. They're very excited. They want to go try something new prior. Do you think that's part of your success of going in where that sign's so much more visible during that third week in November and late season, where things have been shucked around during rifle seasons or firearm seasons? Do you think that's a key strategy to keep in mind?
The states that I was talking about, Iowa and Kansas, their gun season's open in December. So I'm always, even when I'm in there in late November, I'm there before their gun season open. I would never even consider going the first week of October, or the first week of their season, because all the crops are up. So the deer are bedded in the crops. Some of those states, the beans are this tall. The deer bed in the bean fields, or the standing corn, or the milo. They're going to be bedding in the crops a lot. So I always plan on going once the crops are down, so the deer are a lot more congested. The more congested the deer are, the easier they are to target. That's something else a lot of people do when they go out of state, is they look for areas with lots and lots of timber. And that's a big mistake, because on a short-term hunt, on big timber, deer tend to wander. They don't have destination locations. They don't have as much in the line of pinch points. So on a short-term hunt, you want to hunt deer that are congested as much as possible. And once the crops are down, that's what happens in some of those plains states, because, once the crops are down, maybe 10% of the land actually has security cover enough for transitioning during daylight hours. Everything else is just too open.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why my favorite time is actually late November, around Thanksgiving, because that's post rut, and it's kind of interesting during the peak rut, which is going to be mid-September or mid-November, probably around November 7th through November 22nd, 23rd. That's the peak rut. And during that time frame, most of the dominant bucks, the big bucks, not the 130 inches, but the 150 inches and bigger, they're doed up. They're with does. So they don't have to move a lot, and it doesn't take them long to find the next, breeding doe once the one they're with cycle is over. If they're with another buck, they just take them over because they're the dominant buck. So the cool thing about going later in November is most of the does have been bred. Now those big bucks, they still have the testosterone drive to do breeding, but most of the does are bred, so now they actually have to get up and they have to search. So they're checking their scrape areas that they had totally abandoned for the last 2 or 3 weeks. They're checking the scrape areas. They're looking at the pinch points. Wherever there's an influx of doe activity, that's where they're looking, but they're having to move. And because they've been breeding for 2 or 3 weeks, they're worn down. You can see it in their eyes. Their eyes are drawn and they're tired, and they just move with reckless abandon. They react to everything. Like the one I told you about, that I shot him and I rattled him in 2 hours later. I mean, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, right.
I never should have killed that deer, but I did.
Do you see, when you're going on the out-of-state trips, and I know obviously you're not hunting Iowa every year, but consecutively back-to-back years, have you ever went in and hunted a spot for the first time, seen what was going on, and then referenced that like as annual data or annual information for the following season, and go back in and have repeated success?
We always do that.
Yeah.
We always look at stuff out there, because when we're out there, there's so little transition security cover. Everything is very repetitive. The scrape areas are always in the same spot. The pinch points are obviously in the same spots. Right. There was one year where we had a lot of rain, and this was just a few years ago, and all the corn and all the milo was still standing, and that messed up everything because the deer were still bedding in the corn and the milo. But typically when all that stuff's down, everything's very, very repetitive as far as where the deer transition through and move through.
Yep.
And I'm not one of those guys that goes out and pre-scouts a property. So whenever if I get a new piece of property or a new piece of public land, I'm not going to go out there a month before I'm going to hunt it or in post-season and scout that property. We always blow off, because I go with my kids now, we always blow off the first day and a half or 2 days, and all we do is scout and prep locations. So we are scouting and then we're hunting. And I would never do that here, because that scouting pressure the deer wouldn't come back to that spot. But out there, it doesn't seem to matter. And we use cameras. We put a camera at every single location. They're typically primary scrape areas or pinch points, and we can check the cameras every day. We've driven right to them almost sometimes, and it doesn't seem to affect deer traffic.
Right.
The next hunt, there's deer still coming through there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much traffic out there from the farmers and stuff, and there's so little hunting pressure where they actually get shot at, that I don't think they pay that much attention.
Yeah.
I've never shot a buck out there that had a wound on him of my 19 book bucks. And like I mentioned before, 28 of my 31 Michigan book bucks had been wounded with scars, and some of them as many as 4.
The pressure definitely makes a difference. And even, one of the things we've talked about in the past is how often should guys be checking cameras, because depending on where you are, certain states, certain properties, you can check cameras too much and have that human intrusion negatively impact deer movement.
Yep.
But one of the other things we talk about, when you get into a portion of November, you can get away with so much more, because like you said, deer, they're just different creatures.
Testosterone.
At that point of the year, that their guard is let down, and you get away with a lot more, whether that's checking cameras, speed scouting, whatever it may be. But so we definitely agree with.
Well, and you guys sell the cameras that send the pictures back to your cell phone, which is really cool. And I just found out driving down here that I guess P&Y is talking about not allowing bucks in the book if there was a cell camera. How would they ever even know that?
I think it's probably.
Is that true?
Yeah, that is true. And B&C has the same stance on it. I think Boone and Crockett has been that way for a while.
Okay.
I think Pope and Young just made that stance. Was it last week or the week before?
I think it was last week. I think there's been so many rumors or different takes that they just kind of released these statements with a little bit more clarity, but kind of have dug their heels in that. I guess you call it legislation or rules or whatever you want to say.
Right.
That is really
I'm not sure how they.
Interesting.
I think it's probably something on the paperwork and that you sign off on, just a waiver type
Yeah, you
thing.
do have to sign off on
Right.
stuff. It just shocks me that with the advent of legalizing crossbows for everybody, they can breathe. It just seems like there would be so many fewer people that are entering Buxton, Pope, and Young Club that they would want to keep as many as they can because that's where they get their income from. So by 50, 60% of the country's hunting with crossbows now, that's just fewer and fewer vertical bow hunters to put bucks in the record books. So it seems like by adding more criteria, it's just going to lower their.
Yeah,
I guess
who
they
knows?
don't care.
Yeah, who knows? There's that's a whole other wormhole we get into. Western ethics, Eastern ethics, how Western guys do things, how Eastern guys do things. It's it's just a whole.
I've never owned one of those, but I think
we have a lot of them.
I think I might get one from you. I definitely want to try because in Michigan,
they are addictive.
Because that's been my big struggle in Michigan using cameras because I don't use them in Michigan. Is the cameras that I own, you have to physically check, and every intrusion is detrimental to the success of that location.
Right.
Unless you check it when you're going in to hunt.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
When you're checking those cameras as you go into hunt, are those in pretty close proximity of your setups, or are they just along the way?
It'd be real close to my entry route or real close to the base of the tree I'm going to climb. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And usually, because I'm not a phenomenal archer, I'm usually a 15 to 20 yard guy. I struggle shooting over 30. A lot of times it'll be right on the actual tree that I'm hunting, pointing to the destination location, if it's a scrape area or a white oak or whatever. That's what it's been in the past anyway. But I haven't used them much in Michigan, but I hunt them 100%. We put a camera at every single location when we go out of state and hunt accordingly.
And we asked you off recording, but what out-of-state trip do you have planned this fall here?
Kansas is it. Kansas is the only one, and we're leaving on the 16th of November.
So the day after Michigan opening
Yes.
day.
Yep.
Okay. And how long is that? So because it seems like a lot of these trips it's either down to the wire or like home run right off the bat. How long is this trip currently planned to be?
We have the house rented through the 28th. We never usually stay that late because we usually fill, but we have basically 13 days, including the day we get there. And we always plan on arriving at about 7 in the morning. We'll stop at Walmart, get our groceries, unload them in the house before daylight, and then usually about 8 o'clock as it's cracking daylight, we may sit in a chair for an hour and then go out and start doing our scouting and location preparation. But most of the places we have are already spots we've set up, so it's pretty easy. We'll usually set up 2 or 3 new ones, but we'll usually have about 12 locations prepped when we start hunting.
So this area of Kansas you've already hunted in the past?
Yeah.
Is this the same one with that giant cottonwood you're talking about on the way down here?
Different
area?
No.
Okay.
That's a different. No, I lost that. I lost that spot.
Oh, did you?
I lost 2 Kansas spots this year. I had 3 permission spots and some public, and I lost 2 of the free permissions. Somebody from Wisconsin leased 1, and the other one was a piece of property that got sold to another guy that they hunt. So one got leased and one got sold. That sucks because they were both really good pieces. My son's been the killer. John's been the one that's really been getting it done out there. Like in the first 2 or 3 sits, he gets one, and I'm usually one at the tail end.
Do you get emotionally attached to any of these pieces, or are you just on to the next one? There's big deer.
You can't get I've hunted so many properties in my lifetime. I'm not emotionally attached to anything. You can't be. I mean, I had a 20-acre parcel in Michigan, and I think you and I talked about it, and I shot two book bucks, 130 and 136 incher, and none of the other guys hunting it. There was 2 other guys hunting this 20 acres. I never saw them in 7 years of hunting because I was always in before they came in the morning, and I always left after they had left after dark. And I was always there earlier than they would come in the evening. I was already there. So I never crossed paths with these guys. And they were always hunting. The property butted up to some crop fields on the back side. And that's where they were always hunting, is along the edge. And I was down in the junk. So on the last buck I shot was a 140 incher. And as I was dragging it out, it was I shot him at midday. And I was dragging it out at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And one of the guys was pulling in the driveway and saw me. And finally we met, and he helped me drag it out, and that was the last time I hunted that property.
So what do you think happened there?
Well, he obviously saw this big buck that I shot, and he told the owner, because I had never told the owner about any of the bucks I shot. I always got them out after dark. Out of sight, out of mind, you don't get kicked off. Well, the owner's daughter was marrying this guy that was a bow hunter, and now he actually took over the spot I was physically hunting and shot that deer from. But that's just part of the game. Part of the free permission game is you're never going to have it forever. I've had this one I started in 2007, so I've had this probably longer than any private parcel I've ever hunted in my life.
Have you ever dreamed of owning your own parcel, or like? I know that's a dream for a lot of people, but I guess what's your thoughts on that?
I preach hunting public land and knock on doors for free permission properties. I preach hunting pressured property, so that's what I want to do. If I feel like if I went on somebody's managed property and shot a deer, I would lose maybe part of my following. They'd say, all his deer were shot on managed property or something like that. So you got to stick with your guns, and it's so easy once you get in a position like I'm in, that people ask you to hunt here and hunt there, and I just always turn it down because it's managed stuff, or paid hunt guys have asked me to come and hunt their property. There's no way I can do that because I lose my credibility as soon as I kill something there.
That's pretty respectful.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of guys would jump on some of those opportunities to go in and
do it all
and
the
just
time.
kill bigger deer in
Right.
an easier manner, and you have that grip and grin, and a lot of times people probably don't even know the whole story.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're one to talk.
Well, that's a whole.
Yeah, this guy's
Yeah.
killed 100 and almost 80 incher, and then 167 incher, and then he wanted to, and that was on private, and
Yeah.
now you're switching over to hunting public.
Yeah.
So that's
How's
kind
it-
of the same.
And it's a journey.
It's hard.
If you've listened to this, you've heard it. Yeah.
A lot of people know. We talked about it on the podcast quite frequently.
Mm-hmm.
How different it is, how difficult it is mentally, physically. It's almost like you're hunting a different animal.
Without a doubt.
So
Totally.
it's tough.
I mean, I look at some of the TV guys. There's some TV guys that are from Michigan, and they've never shot a buck in Michigan, yet they're killing, on their TV shows, they're killing monster bucks every year.
Yep.
In Indiana and in Ohio, they're killing 140, 50 inchers in Ohio, and they go to Iowa and Kansas. And, they're big heroes on TV, but in the state that they came from, they never shot a buck deer.
Yeah.
So I don't ever want to be in that boat. I want to, live what I preach. So, yeah.
That's plenty fair. We have a couple questions here that we posted on our Instagram story. We have a wide spectrum of questions, and let's burn through a couple easy ones, I guess, and then we can go into some more in-depth ones. How's that sound?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one question was setup height or cover?
Setup height or cover?
If you had to choose one.
Oh, setup height or cover?
Yeah.
Ooh. Cover.
Cover?
Security cover. Everything, when you're hunting mature bucks, everything revolves around security cover. So if I had to be lower, thank God I hunt out of a saddle. I could get on the back side of the tree. But, if you're hunting outside of security cover in a state like Michigan on the types of property I hunt, you're wasting your time if you want to kill a big buck.
Very fair. Okay, do you use a flashlight when you're walking in the morning or walking out?
If I can see the ground, I do not. If I do use a flashlight, it's a single AAA flashlight. I would never in my lifetime wear a headlamp. No way.
Okay.
Because deer can see that. When I'm hunting public land and I'm in my tree an hour and a half before daylight, I'll see guys coming in from damn near a half a mile away with their headlamps, especially when the foliage is down.
Uh-huh.
And I'll have deer run by me that these guys are spooking, and they're a quarter mile ahead of them because they see the lights coming in. So headlamps, bright lights, spook deer. So I want something that's very dim. All I want to do is see the ground. So I'm not going to step on a twig and snap something and make noise, especially on a morning entry, which is when I'd use a flashlight anyway. And then I also want it just bright enough to see my next tack.
Okay.
My reflective tack if I'm following a route with tacks.
I knew there would be more. It seemed like an easy question, but I knew there'd be more to it. Next question is from Greg Tubbs from Wisconsin. He asked, okay, what's some of the most basic things that you would tell someone that's just getting into saddle hunting? If you used a tree stand their whole life, whether it's a portable stand, sticks and stand, they want to make a transition to saddle hunting. There's obviously a lot of information circulating.
I'd say disregard about 50% of what you see on YouTube, if not 70%, because a lot of the guys on YouTube don't know what they're doing in a saddle. So I would say the number one thing is the tree is your friend. When you get up in the tree, use the tree as a blocker. These people that are, they're standing in a set position, and then to shoot a deer at their 4 or 5 o'clock, which is going to be behind them a little bit to their right if they're right-handed, and they stand on their platform and spin around 180 degrees to shoot that deer, and they're on the same side of the tree as the deer, they're probably, if they're in any kind of a pressured area, they're going to get busted. So use the tree as your friend. Put steps around the tree. It might take you an extra 5 minutes. Go 5 minutes earlier. Be able to move around the back of the tree and keep the tree as a buffer. If I see a deer and it's coming in and it's going to be at my 4 o'clock over here, what I'll do is I'll swing around the tree to my left on my steps. I'll walk around to the back side of the tree. Now the tree is between me and the deer. And then when the deer, if it's going that way, when it gets to my 3 o'clock, I'll just slightly lean to the side and take that shot. I'm not making all that movements on the same side of the tree that the deer is on. So make sure you watch and pay attention to videos where stuff makes sense. Just because guys do something on a video doesn't mean they're doing it correctly. But keeping the tree as your friend is probably the biggest deal to me.
I want to elaborate on that a little bit, because I think that's a really good point about how you specifically set up with that ring of steps. And you've talked about it on every freaking podcast or every interview. I mean, you've talked about this stuff a lot.
I get beat up on that a lot because a lot of guys don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys are running they run a platform or like a mini platform like that I'm running or whatever. But essentially, you're walking yourself around that tree to keep that shot at whatever your strong side.
Yeah, it's your 9
whatever.
or 10 o'clock.
Right, at 9 o'clock. So whether that deer comes in at 4, 6, 1, you're using that tree as a barrier.
Absolutely.
To walk around and still have that same.
So if a tree is coming in from my 6 to 7, well, obviously I'd have that shot right there.
Right.
But what I would probably do, even if it was coming in from my 6 or 7, is I see it coming in, I'm not going to keep my body on the same place it is and take that shot. I'm probably going to swing around to my right until it gets right there at exactly where I want to shoot it. Then I'll just slightly swing to my left and take the shot at my 8 or 9.
Right.
I won't sit there and wait, because as he's coming in from my 6 o'clock and he's working his way to my 7, for me to move around and get in position, I've got to make that movement on the same side of the tree. So I'm going to swing around when his attention's elsewhere. If he's far enough away, I'm going to swing around to the backside over to my right, where then when I do have to make that shot, it's just a slight movement to the side where I can shoot to the side of the tree.
And you say swing, but you really mean you're walking.
I'm walking.
You're
on
not.
my
There's
steps.
no exactly.
There's
no
body
swaying,
movements
swing.
that I don't have 100% control over.
Yeah.
That's my downside with platforms. I don't have anything against a platform. I just struggle with people that have a platform that don't have steps around the backside of the tree, at the same level as the platform, where if you need to move around to the backside of the tree, you have that option. That's what the saddle is designed for. It's designed to keep the tree as a buffer. That's one of the things it's designed for, so you don't get picked. And anytime you make a lot of body movements on the same side of the tree as the deer, you're apt to get picked. And like you had said about that one gentleman in Michigan and in a lot of pressured areas, deer look for hunters in trees.
Yeah.
So you can get away with that stuff if you're hunting parks and suburban areas, or Kansas or Iowa, where deer just don't look up. but and you even said in Ohio the deer don't look up, at least what you've ran into.
No.
So, it depends on where you're hunting, what you can get away with. In some areas you can't get away with things that you can get away with in others.
Yeah. No, I think that's just an interesting and a good point for newbies to really understand. There's a couple of things there. One is you're not swinging from your tether at any point in that sit, and you're using the tree as a physical barrier to put that deer at basically 8, 9, maybe 10 o'clock. That's the shot, regardless of where or how that deer comes in. That's the shot, and you're manipulating the tree to get that shot.
Correct. My favorite shot's 10 and 11 o'clock. So I want to just swing to the side and take that shot over there as opposed to this. Because other than taking this shot, my whole body is exposed against a skyline this way, where if I'm taking that shot, the tree's here, and I'm just taking that shot at 10 or 11.
Got it.
And another thing with the platform is the guys that are not using steps around the backside, what I see them doing is they'll put their feet on the front of the platform, which puts their body profile a lot farther away from the tree, probably another 18 inches. So when the foliage is down, it's easier to get picked. And then also, if they're not using steps around the backside of the tree, if they're hunting a tree bigger than that, basically what they're doing is they're moving their feet to the corner of the platform, and then if they're getting a shot to, let's say, they're 1 o'clock or they're 2 o'clock, they're putting their feet on the edge of the platform, and then they're allowing their body to move around the tree to take that shot. They're basically swinging around the tree, and there's maybe a half a second or 3/4 of a second there where gravity's taking over your body movements, and you have no control of it. So that's a great place you might potentially get picked. With steps, keep them 8 to 10 inches apart. They're just nice, easy movements. You have 100% control of your movements 100% of the time. You can stop on a dime, if you know what I'm saying.
Right. No, it makes a lot of sense. Ton of sense.
Let me pull up the other question here.
Okay.
Soaking that in, huh? Well, one other thing I would say, and you've been doing this for 30 years. We've been doing it for 4, so like not comparing any.
40 years. I've been doing it for 40 years.
40 years. You just gave your age. I was trying to give you a compliment there, John. But for newbies, one thing that I found out kind of the hard way is, there's certain trees, if they're leaned a certain way, it can be pretty tricky if you don't have that ring of steps and if you're not set up right where gravity does want to take you one way or the other. So I would, whether it's wrong or right, I would get used to being in a saddle and used to, figure out what height your tether needs to be, where you want your bridge, and get familiar in a fairly straight tree before you start getting into some wicked stuff.
So I always suggest people set up some steps or whatever you're going to hunt from 18 inches off the ground in the yard, on a telephone pole, whatever, and practice. And on a leaning tree, now that you mentioned a leaning tree, if you're hunting in a leaning tree, if it leans very much, if it leans beyond 10 degrees, you're not going to get 360.
Right.
You're not. There's going to be an area, probably would be, I'd say you're 1 or 2 o'clock where you won't be able to take that shot. You can swing around and probably shoot to your 12 o'clock on the opposite side of the tree because you can move to the side. But as soon as you start to swing to the back side of the tree, gravity is just going to pull your body around and you're just going to dangle there.
Yeah.
And with no control over anything. And I will also say, if you're hunting a tree with a slight lean, you always hunt on the side like you're climbing a ladder. That's where you position your body. But if you're hunting a tree with a slight lean, if you're putting steps around the tree, put the steps other than the ones you're going to be standing on, or if you're standing on a platform and you're going to add steps, raise the steps about 2 inches each when you're going around the back. Because as you go around the tree, the lead is going to wrap around the tree a little bit and pull your body up. And you want those steps to make up for your raising of your body.
Good tip. Yep. That's a pro tip.
Yeah.
We give pro camera tips. He gives pro saddle tips.
It's a pretty even trade. Maybe not. One question that someone asked, most people have a, I guess, influential hunting mentor that maybe got things started, or you learned a lot, or ignited kind of where you are today. Who or did you have a mentor that maybe sparked the progression of you over the years?
No, the only guy I really paid attention to in the hunting industry was Miles Keller. And him and I are probably close to the same age. I'm 69. I think he's in his 70s. But he was killing bucks, before all this stuff that's going on now, back when they were a little more difficult to get. So he's the only guy I've really paid attention to in the hunting industry. Obviously Fred Bear, but Fred Bear wasn't really a big whitetail hunter. He was a big game hunter. But as far as a mentor, nobody in my family hunted, so I didn't have anybody that took me under wing. I did have a guy named Leroy. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Leroy on a podcast before. He was in his 30s. He was an alcoholic, but he was a good bow hunter. He shot a root recurve, because I'm talking back in recurve days now, in the 60s, even with me. And he kind of took me under wing and took me out on some public land places. And I remember a couple really, really distinct times. We were on this public land, and he shot a doe. And the doe, I actually went over on some private in a hayfield and died, and this was an evening hunt. So the doe had 2 fawns with her. And when we're out there gutting this doe in the dark, it was in a hayfield, one of the fawns was crying for mama. And Leroy said, "Get down." He said, "Get down." So I'm like, "What the hell is he doing?" I'm like 15 years old. And I'm like, "What are we doing?" And he sat down and he went, "Meh, meh." And that one of those fawns came up and he shot the freaking fawn too. He was a meat hunter, man. He was a meat guy. Another time we were hunting on public land, and I shot a monster doe, and he was so pissed that I killed something. And I shot it with a Ben Pearson 45-pound recurve, that when we gutted it, and again, I'm a young teenager. I didn't have a driver's license. When we gutted it, he propped it up against a tree and target practiced at it, shot at it in the chest, just to piss me off. I cried. I've told this before, and yeah, Leroy was an ass, but he was a good hunter. He killed stuff. He was a swamp guy. He knew how to hunt comparatively to what else was out there back then. Right. There wasn't a lot of bow hunting instructional information at all. Hardly anybody bow hunted. One other time, I had got my car. I was 16, and I called Leroy because this one piece of public land we were hunting, he said, "Don't ever go out there without me." And when he says that, he's serious. And so I called him one morning, and this was on a weekend, and he, it was a school. I was in school, and he wasn't home, so I just went out there by myself. And it's like a 40-minute drive. This was in Pinckney Recreation Area, and I went in and I scouted, and I'm all hot and sweaty. And back then, you cut stuff with a hatchet. They didn't have these saws like they have now. And I'm standing out in my car, and Leroy pulls up behind me, and I'm all hot and sweaty, and I got the hatchet in my hand, and he gets out of his pickup truck and just casually walks up to me and, "What do you got?" And he reached down and grabbed the hatchet out of my hand, and then he just slugged me. He cold punched me, man, knocked me right down. And he said, "I told you never to come here without me." I said, "Well, I called you," and I'm bleeding. He said, I called you, and you weren't home." He said, "Whether I'm home or not, this is my spot, and I don't ever want you here unless I'm with you." And you know what? He was right. He was right. And I thought about that all the way home bleeding, and he told me that, and and he was nice enough to take me under wing, even though he was an alcoholic, and he usually used me as a deer deflector. That's what my purpose was. Yeah. But it was crude, but it was when you learn stuff that way, you don't forget it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, that's,
You're not going to see me here, John. I'm not going to be back here, I promise. I don't want to get punched in the face.
I wouldn't do that. But Leroy was a meat guy, so.
That's funny. I was not expecting that answer to that question at all.
That's, very interesting.
He's dead now, by the way.
How'd you come across Leroy?
He was actually an uncle to my cousin's husband. So my cousin Melody married a guy named Danny. Danny's dead now, too, and Leroy was Danny's uncle.
Okay.
Leroy was in his mid-30s, and I was a teenager. So he was about 20 years older than me.
Gotcha. Okay, next question here from Chasing Public. He asked, what's one thing that you haven't figured out about mature bucks yet? Is there any mystery that still leaves you wondering? Is there anything that...
If I hadn't figured that out yet, I wouldn't know that I hadn't figured it out. So obviously not.
So you don't know what you don't know, basically.
There's lots of things. Nobody has it all figured out. That's an impossibility. I'm always learning. I was doing an in-store last year, and there was these. I was talking to 2 guys, and it was in Jay's where we were today. And I was talking to these 2 guys, but I wasn't really paying attention to them because I hear so many deer stories. It just I try to be nice and listen and then say, well, congratulations. But there was these 2 other guys, about as far as Cam is, and they were talking about this one guy killed this nice buck last year, and I overheard him say something that was really interesting, and I don't remember what it was. And as soon as he said that, I'm thinking to myself, I've never heard of that before. So I told these two guys I'm talking to, I said, excuse me for a second, would you? I just heard him say, and I went over there and asked the guy, I said, could you elaborate on that story you just told? I've never heard anybody do that before, and it sounded unique, and it worked for you. And he told me, and I don't remember what it was. But, I mean, if you think you know everything, you're going to become stagnant. It's always learning, because deer hunting's changing. God, people are passing up bucks now. The bucks you have nowadays are nothing like they were 20, 30 years ago. So it's always evolving and progressing.
What's your opinion on the moon?
I'm not a big moon phase guy.
No?
No,
What
not
about
at all.
transit times, like the overhead, underfoot stuff? Nothing?
Nope, I don't pay attention to that. And the reason I don't is back in the 60s and 70s, shining was a big deal. Everybody used to shine deer. And I would go shining if there was a full moon, and I'm talking about during the rut phases now. If there was a full moon and we'd go shining and there was no cloud cover, we would not see any decent bucks shining. And as soon as if it was raining, if it was an overcast or a drizzly rain, yet it was still a full moon phase, we'd see the deer. And the nights where we wouldn't see any decent bucks, because you could shine until I think 11 o'clock back then, the nights we wouldn't see any decent bucks, the next day, the full moon at night where there was no cloud cover, the next day the midday movements were superb. And the nights we did see some mature bucks because of the cloud cover or the rain, the next day the midday movements weren't as good. So because those bucks weren't out pursuing those does in the open crop fields at night, they made up for it the next day during midday if they weren't doed up. So yeah. I've never paid attention to the moon phases. Most studies are done by people that do their studies in captive environments. Charles Alzheimer's probably one of the greatest, and he did a lot of moon phase studies. But moon phase studies on deer in captive environments don't really interest me much, because there's no hunting pressure. There's usually the same ratio of mature bucks to mature does, subordinate bucks to younger does. So the age structures are similar. There's no hunting pressure, and they act normal. It's like the TV guys, where the TV guys, what they do has no interest in me whatsoever, because they're hunting like in zoo settings for the most part. So, stuff that they do doesn't work where I hunt, other than maybe in Kansas or Iowa. But so if studies are done in captive environments, they don't really mean that much to me, because it doesn't replicate anything I do hunting wise. Yeah. Because my deer are not in captive environments; they're under heavy pressure environments.
Something that
I will say, I do like to hunt in the rain. I will go out of my way to hunt in the rain, a light rain or a drizzle rain, or a 15-mile-an-hour wind. Yeah. I think mature bucks feel more comfortable moving in that, because people, things can't hear them.
Yeah. Well, I think we talked a little bit on the weather, and I think maybe we touched on the moon just a little bit in that interview we did a couple years ago in 2016 or whenever that was. But the moon is one of those things where you have guys that say, it doesn't influence deer movement at all. And then there's other guys that swear up and down they will only hunt specific phases of the moon or certain transit times of the moon. And then there's guys like me that I have no freaking clue. Does it make a difference or does it not make a difference? I don't know. I never pay attention to it enough to.
I find that most guys that really pay attention to moon phases are like TV guys that hunt managed properties, where they have total control of their property, and they have control of who hunts it and everything. So deer move very similarly like they do in the studies that have been done. They're almost captive environments, because, if
not a whole lot of other outside influences.
No, and even the bucks that are on the property. Let's say you've got 4 guys hunting 1,000 acres like the TV guys do. The Drurys and Kiskies and Lee and Tiffany's, thousands of acres. They'll have 150 inchers walk by them, and we'll let them go another year. So those deer, even though they may have hunter encounters, there's no negative consequences with hunter encounters. So they're moving just like they would in a captive environment in an enclosure. They can say free ranging 100% wild all they want. It's still not a replication of what most people have to deal with hunting pressure property. It's not even relatively close.
Yeah. I agree with that.
It
Yeah,
might
we got
piss some people off, but that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone agrees, regardless of where you hunt, and we talked about this at lunch or in a car or the truck or whatever. But pressure is the biggest negative influence on deer movement.
Period. And
whether whether you're in Michigan, Pennsylvania, it doesn't matter where you are.
Exactly.
Pressure's it. So.
Yep. And Michigan definitely doesn't own the whole thing on pressure. It's, West Virginia, PA, Massachusetts, every state up in the Northeast. Ohio has a lot of pressure. You guys kill a lot of monster bucks, but you got a lot of bow hunters. You got about 300,000 bow hunters, which is a hell of a lot. So, yeah, we are definitely not an anomaly on bow hunting pressure by any stretch of the means.
Right. Yeah.
One other question we had to roll in was specifically they just want to know more about your opinion on hunting early mornings during the early season. What time are you accessing? Are you spending a lot of hunts in the early season in the morning, or
it's kind of interesting because the last 4 bucks I shot that made book in Michigan, either opening day or day 2, were all shot in the mornings. 3 of them I rattled in because there's kind of
like October 1,
October 1 or October 2. Yep.
That's pretty interesting.
The last 4, and that's going back to I think the first one was in 77, somewhere in there. Maybe it was in the 80s.
What are some of those setups look like? Where are you tight to cover?
Those 3 of them were in bedding areas, and I rattled in all 3 of the ones in bedding areas. I sparred them in. I didn't rattle. It was a sparring sequence. Because bucks at that time, they're still figuring out their pecking order, so they're not fighting for breeding rights. They're just sparring and pushing each other to see which one's the strongest for pecking order. So one of them, I actually was in a bedding area, and I get in way before daylight. I'm in 2 hours before daylight, and I'm in the tree an hour and a half and set up before daylight. So the first one was I could hear 2 bucks sparring until like 8 o'clock, an hour after daylight, and as soon as they quit, I just got out my bag and replicated their noise. I couldn't see them. I couldn't tell what they were, and a 10-point came over, and I shot him. And it was definitely one of the 2 bucks that was sparring because it came from the exact same direction. Another time there was 2 deer. I was in an oak tree, and there was 2 deer heading to a bedding area that was like 50 yards in front of them, and they were going through these other oaks, and I could see their feet, their legs. I could not see their antlers. I couldn't see their heads. So I had no clue if it was bucks or does, bucks or does. And so I said, well, what the hell? I have nothing to lose. They were 100 yards away, 80 to 100 yards away. So I took out my bag, and I just did a short 10-second sparring sequence.
Are you using real antlers or
bag?
Okay.
I use an old Nightingale bag with long wooden sticks in it.
Okay.
And I just I just did a real light sparring sequence, and they turned and they started coming towards me, and they got about 40 yards from me, and now I can see they're both bucks. There was an 8 and a 10-point, and they started eating acorns under this oak tree. Well, now I can visually see them, and they had lost interest. So now they turn and they start going towards the bedding area again, back in the direction they were going in the first place. So now I'm like, what do? I can't spar. I can't make a sparring sequence because they could visually see me in the tree because that takes a few seconds. So I carry an exhale and an inhale grunt call, and I took out the inhale grunt call, and I turned around and just real softly did a real soft grunt. And both of them just turned and walked right in, and I shot the 10-point at 12 yards. And another one was like the first one. They were two bucks sparring in a bedding area, and I rattled them in, and it was an 8-point. And then the other one, which was the last one, which was in 2014, that was on opening morning on a 2-acre parcel. And there was a little tiny transition at the back of this 2 acres that went into a cattail swamp from some brush, which was in an oak flat over to this way. So there's a little pinch point of transition security cover going into this cattail marsh right at the back edge of this 2-acre parcel that this old lady owned. And so I went, somebody had seen a buck cross the road there. And I had hunted this property years ago, but I'd never seen a buck there worth shooting, so I abandoned it. I didn't hunt there anymore. So somebody told me, hey, man, I saw a buck going into that property you used to hunt. And it was a really nice one, and this is a guy I trusted. So I went and got permission again, and I waited for a really rainy, nasty day, and I took my prep gear with me, even though it's right behind her house. 2 acres isn't squat. But I waited for a really rainy day because I knew there was some brush along the edge of the cattail marsh, like there typically is, like there is right here.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got back there, it was all rubbed up because I went back there in mid-September. So they'd been rubbed out for at least a week to 10 days. And it was all trashed out, all the red brush. So I had my prep gear, and I prepped a tree right then and there because I had the rain to mask my noise and my scent, because I didn't have scent lock on when I was prepping this spot. And then I went back opening morning. I was in my tree a couple hours before daylight and shot him at 8 o'clock. He coming through, going into the cattail marsh to bed. And he was going right down there. He was going to rub on a little red brush before he went into bed. So those were all morning situations. I don't hunt apple trees on mornings because, like this apple tree here, on mornings there's going to be deer feeding there. So obviously you're going to spook them with your entry. So apple trees are strictly evening locations. And I haven't shot a deer in the opening 2 days in the evening in a long, long time. Been a long time. It's always been in the mornings.
I would guess that the majority of hunters opening the opening morning of October 1 archery season is pretty low.
Probably.
I mean, most people are like, I'm not hunting the morning. They'll hunt that evening probably. They'll probably get off work early, go hunt in the evening. And another thing that's interesting, I think most people would be, I don't know a lot of people that are rattling October 1, October 2nd,
Well, if you're in a bedding area, bedding areas are, they're going to be a few acres at least, 4 or 5 acres, if not bigger. And at that time, when you're in the bedding area way before daylight, they're going to, a good buck's probably in Michigan. He's going to come into the bedding area usually a half hour to an hour before daylight. He's pretty nocturnal from all the other preseason scouting in the area. So he's going to transition out of the feeding areas into the bedding areas. Once he's in the bedding area before daylight, he feels comfortable moving around during daylight hours in there because he could hear anything coming in after that. Well, I'm already in there and set up. So for me to be in there and make a sparring sequence where they're, that's the time of year they're, sparring for pecking order, they reply to it relatively well. But it's just a sparring sequence. It's not a hard rattle. I never rattle in Michigan like you see on TV because that just spooks deer. So
that was gonna be my question or thought on that. A lot of guys, and I've seen this in Illinois, hunting Illinois, and I've seen this in Ohio. It seems like it was worse in Illinois. But you get in some of these pressured states, and there's a lot of guys that are in the woods, right? And we all hunt at different levels, so I'm not knocking anybody. But I think we probably have all heard or had some type of encounter with some guy relatively close to you on a freaking grunt tube.
Every 10, 15 minutes.
All day long.
Yeah.
So my mind, like when I'm hunting public ground, I'm a little bit timid to make those vocalizations and worry that they've had a bad encounter, a bad taste with something in the first 3, 4, 5 years of their life. So it sounds like
catch them off guard early season.
That's true, but you got to keep in mind, typically those guys that are calling wrong are also hunting wrong. They're probably if they're on public land, they're probably in an easy-to-access spot where they can walk to it. They're not going back where you have to be serious and cross rivers, cross lakes, use a canoe, hip boots, waders.
Right.
So when you get back into that sort of a scenario, which is typically where the bucks are pushed during preseason, that's where those big bucks feel comfortable because there's no humans back there, then I think you're getting rid of that person on the peripheral area. And I think once a deer gets back in there, I think they're more apt to respond because there's less percentages of it being, I don't want to say less percentages of it being a human, but I just think because they're up and moving and they feel secure where they're at, they're more apt to respond to it.
No, that makes sense. I mean, if they're in their bedding area, I mean, it's been bulletproof to get them to 3, 4 years old or whatever. They feel pretty confident that if something was wrong, I mean, you'd see whitetails and they'd be out of there.
Yes.
So that kind of makes sense when you, I guess,
and
collectively think about that theory or that circumstance collectively.
And when you're in there so much earlier than they are, if they come in there 45 minutes to an hour before daylight, once they're in it, they feel comfortable. Because if a human comes in, which is most humans are entering in the woods a half hour to an hour before daylight, 45 minutes, they're going to hear it. And then they're obviously going to bed down and they're not going to get up and move, period.
Right.
End of discussion. So once they're in there and they don't hear anything coming in as far as an human intrusion, they feel comfortable moving and possibly responding to something. And I'm not going to say every time you do it, it's going to work, but
Right.
it's worked 3 times for me on the rattling side.
Has that ever been that vocalization, rattling, sparring sequence, grunting? Do you wait for like an impromptu moment or a trigger to make those vocalizations, or have you ever done it blind and seen success? Because that's a big.
I don't do it blind too often. All
Right.
3 of those were there
Yeah,
was a
indication,
reason.
yeah.
Right.
There was a reason
Right.
for me to do it. I have done it cold calling, but I've never had it be successful.
Right.
I guess that's the best answer. I have tried it. I'm not going to lie about that. I definitely have tried it, but I've never shot anything that other than where I've actually heard deer and did the calling sequences.
Yeah. That's the only time I've ever seen it work too. That's
Yeah.
why I asked.
I mean, how often are you carrying something to rattle first week of October? I'm never carrying anything like that.
I don't carry anything
I
at all.
I always.
What's always in your pack? What are some of the things you don't
I
go in
did
the
a
woods with?
video for my YouTube channel with I emptied my pack and talked about everything, and I carry a lot of stuff in my pack. I carry a rangefinder, I carry 2 grunt calls, I carry a rattle bag, I carry a doe bleat, a doe bellow. Obviously, I carry a handsaw, I carry my 8-layer garments, I carry a compass, even though I don't ever carry my cell phone hunting. I just don't want to have to text, possibility of even thinking about texting. So I carry bow rope, I carry scent lock gloves, pee bottle, water bottle, grabber warmers, rangefinder, Leupold thermal imaging unit, and I use the thermal imaging not for recovering deer, but on an evening hunt, if I'm hunting at a destination location like a scrape area or a master fruit tree, I want to take a look around me to see if there's any bodies, so I can get down and leave. So I'm not doing it for recovery purposes. I just want to because prior to having that, there was times I'd get down, especially at apple trees, and I would think there wasn't anything there because I hadn't heard anything in 10 minutes, but you get down and then you know exactly what I'm talking about, I'm sure.
Yep.
So with that thermal imaging unit, I can pick something up for 50 yards away, and I'll just wait for it to leave.
That makes sense. It's a lot of stuff.
A lot, yeah. And I carry a saw for cutting the pelvic open. I carry a watch on my watch is actually strapped to one of the D-rings on my backpack. So when I put my backpack 120 degrees to my right, my watch is right there where I can just look at it and see what time. Because if you have it on your wrist, you've always got to peel back everything to see it. So I got the watch right there. And some other junk too. I carry an extra plastic bag, so if I'm on a long entry, let's say I'm wearing a t-shirt early season, and I get back there and that's damp, I'll have an extra dry t-shirt in my backpack, so I'll take that t-shirt off, put it in the Ziploc baggie, flatten it out and seal it and put it in my backpack, and then I'll let my body cool off, and this is, plenty of time before daylight or early enough in the afternoon, and then I'll put on the dry shirt and put my scent lock back on over top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that for precautions too.
And what's your YouTube channel? I know what it is, but as you're referencing these, so people can go check it out.
Eberhart Outdoors. And there's not a whole lot on it now. I've got a couple of boot videos, and I was in a tree with a saddle, but I've got 35 shows ready to air right now. And so I'm waiting for my new signature saddle to come out, which is supposed to be the end of August. I talked to Greg yesterday, and he said they should be landing sometime in late August. So I'm kind of waiting for that to
make a push.
to show those. But I may put 1 or 2 of the saddle videos out before that because I think it's really important, and a lot of people need to see it.
How many more user questions do we have?
There's a couple other, but I think we worked through most of them. We had a lot. We had to sift through some of them.
Okay.
But that's pretty much.
You want to talk? Can you talk about the saddle, or do you want to wait, come back on and?
We can talk about it now. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, go for it.
Or you want to go in the shade?
No, we can. I think we're okay. To do it right
Still
here.
on?
Yeah, we're still running.
Well, this here is a similar prototype to the saddle that I'm coming out with, the ESS. Now this is a tree tether. Obviously, I've made some modifications and shortened it up. We're not going to talk about that because that's something totally separate.
So for anyone listening to the podcast, not getting the visual, just jump over to our YouTube channel. Obviously, John's going to have some more in-depth stuff on his YouTube channel, so you'll be able to see that stuff either channel.
Palette.
Okay. So this here, you gotta love that. It's not a good sentence structure. Are you on? Okay, so this is my ESS. It's still missing one part. It's missing the leg straps. That will be on it, obviously. It's a 2-panel system, very, very similar to the old tree sling that I used to use. And basically, with a 2-panel system, you can spread the seat as much as you want it. You can have it overlapped and have a 6-inch seat. You can make a 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. You can take the outer strap, because the inner strap, this strap here, is always underneath your butt. This is always underneath the bottom of your butt, comes right up to the crease of your butt cheeks. But then this outer strap, you can pull this up your back. You know, if I get in a tree an hour and a half before daylight and I'm in the tree and settled in and I want to go to sleep, I'll lift this outer strap up into my lower back. And basically, it'll give me something to lean against or lean forward and go to sleep. I'll wrap my arms around the tree tether, lay my head on it, and fall asleep. And then when I get ready to hunt, I'll put them back. But when I'm hunting, I usually overlap them. Each one of those panels is 6 inches wide. I'll overlap them so it's about a 9-inch seat. But the cool thing about this is if you're a newbie, so if you're a new guy to saddle hunting, you may want that seat to be pretty deep, because you want it to be comfortable, like you're not going to fall out of it. But the more you hunt out of a saddle, the shallower you're going to want that seat, because it's more comfortable and it gives you more upper body freedom to spin at the waist if it's not up into your lower back. It doesn't lock your upper body to your lower body. So the versatility of having those overlap and make the seat however you want them is really cool. And I like it to be about 9 inches. So I just about half overlap them. That's how I like it. And that way, the back is up about to here, just about to the top of the crack of my butt, and then the bottom is just under the crease of your butt cheeks. And another really cool thing about this, and no other saddle, I don't think anybody else has this, are these slotted D-rings. Now, saddles tend to ride up. Single panel seat saddles tend to ride up. The only one that really doesn't is the Tethrd Phantom, because it has comfort channels. But still, you have to manually move your bridge in those comfort channels. So with this, because that slides on those D-rings so easily, as soon as you change the way you're sitting, as soon as you change your seat depth, this automatically adjusts to equalize your weight distribution in that seat. It just slides to whatever position it needs to be. So unlike a single panel saddle or any saddle with loop bridges like this, bridge loops, very similar to these are lineman loops, but most saddles also have bridge loops made out of fabric. So when you got fabric on your bridge hooking to fabric on your bridge loops on the saddle, as soon as you put your weight in them, they bind into that spot. So if you change your seating position, you physically have to lift your weight up and move your bridge on that bridge loop. With this one here, it automatically slides to wherever it needs to be. So you got the versatility of having an adjustable seat however you want it. You know, as you get more comfortable in the saddle, you can bring it to whatever you want depth-wise. You still have lineman loops. You still have the mollies, so you can hook pouches to it. Still going to have an adjustable bridge. It's going to have the leg loops. You have to have that to pass drop testing and to get liability insurance. And basically, that's about it.
You know, I've never sat in a 2-panel saddle, but the biggest difference that I see that we talked about at your house earlier today are the D loops, and not, you know, the fabric bridge loops that your bridger is connecting to or tied to, whether you're using you know, AM steel or whatever. It doesn't really matter what kind of material the bridge is made out of. It still gets bound and held up.
Yes.
And to your point, like, you have to take the weight off of your saddle to make that adjustment.
Right.
You can't really do it on the fly. So that's the very first thing that once I you mentioned it, and then once I saw it, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It just automatically slides because it slides on that so easy. And fabric to fabric, it just binds. Whatever
There's
that
friction there.
position
Yeah.
is. Because of the friction. So, and this is what I've been hunting out of for 40 years. I've hunted out of a saddle since 1981, and it's basically, this is a replication of what I've been using, and I've modified over the years. And I've hunted out of single seat panels, and there is no way a single seat panel, to me anyway, is as comfortable as a 2-panel system. Also, with a 2-panel system, you can overlap them. You can slide them up into your thigh, to change your clothes out. That's one thing I struggle with tree stands. I can't understand how people can change, because on an all-day sit, I'll change my clothes 4 times, 3 to 4 times, because when I get to my tree, I dress really light when I leave the vehicle. When I get up into the tree, I take off my sunlock jacket, and this is way before daylight, hang it up, and I will let my upper body cool down. Then I will put on my layer garments. So with this double panel saddle, I can slide those panels together and slide them down underneath my butt, and now my whole upper body is wide open. So I can take off my jacket, put on my layers, tuck them into my pants, put my jacket back on, and then I just, pull it back up under my butt, and then take that outer panel and just lift it up to wherever I want it. And then in the middle of the day, as the sun comes up, it's 10, 11 o'clock, and it starts to heat up, you want to take off a layer because you're overheating. You do the same thing. You just overlap the panels, slide them down under your thigh, take off your jacket, take off your layers, put them in your pack, and then put your jacket back on, and then you do the same thing in the evening when it starts to cool down again. You want to put some more clothes back on because it's getting cold, and you do the same thing again. So on an all-day hunt, to change at a minimum of 3 times, I'm going to change my clothes. And this here just allows you to do that a lot better. With a tree stand, with that thing going, you got the safety strap around the tree, and it's coming down through a hole in your jacket. You got to take off your jacket, disconnect that thing. I just don't get how people can even do that.
More likely, you just don't wear one. Truthfully.
Yeah.
Shoot, I had something in my mind I wanted to mention, and now, so that double panel, as you're walking through, the adjustability as far as positioning on whether that's the back of your hamstrings, below your butt, on your butt, your lower back, essentially, you're almost replacing, which I don't know the technical term for it, but the back band or whatever that you get with a Manus or some of the
recliner or something like that.
I'm not. Yeah, I think it is called the recliner.
Yeah,
but essentially, you're scratching that itch without adding another piece of gear to your setup.
Yeah, you can basically separate this, and you can pull it up into your lower back the same as a recliner would be. Mm-hmm. And this one always stays under your butt when you're hunting.
So one question real quick. In a position like that, now, that is sewn or stitched together basically in one piece. So the
this is
webbing,
all one continuous piece.
So when you have it split like that into 2 different panels, I would assume the way those D loops are sliding that the pressure is going to be almost equal between the 2 panels. So you're not going to have a pressure point on one spot or the next.
Right.
Got it.
Now sometimes when you raise this up really high, this outer panel will get a little shorter, but all you got to do is basically reach back there and lift your weight up a little bit and pull out on it, then push down in the seat, and it'll equal it out. And then when you go back to hunting, you just kind of, I like to have it about like that. I like to have it overlapped about like that, just underneath my butt. But if you're a newbie guy, you're going to want it. You're not going to want it like that. You're going to want a little more coverage because you want to feel safer. You're going to want this thing probably up like that, where this top strap is going to be at about belt level, if not a little higher.
Super cool. So that's an late August, early September drop?
Yes. Yep, late August. Well, they said late August yesterday, so I'm sure hoping it's true. Originally I said June, and then I said July, and then I said early August, and now it's late August. So.
Well, I know how that goes.
Yes.
Yeah. Can't say
well,
anything
with what's
about
going
that.
on offshore and shipping and stuff, the COVID thing has changed.
Crazy.
Changed a lot this year.
Well, anything else before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I think it's been a pretty productive day, really good day. A lot of good conversations on camera, in front of camera, off camera.
Yeah.
It's been a privilege.
Yeah, it has
The
been.
only downside was Jay's didn't have that mouse I was looking for.
All that lore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we found out that you're a pretty big fisherman. Did not know that from previous conversations. So I hate fishing. I can't. Can't add any value there.
He doesn't have the patience for fishing, but he has the patience for bow hunting. That's hard to comprehend.
I don't know. You can't see fish underneath water.
Well, that's true.
And I don't know where they are.
Well, you sit in a tree a lot of times without seeing them.
Without knowing where they're
That's
at.
But I can walk around. I can't swim underneath the water and do my scouting.
Well, there you go. That's a good one.
I guess if I could do that, maybe I would fish.
Well, perfect. Well, where can Eberhart Outdoors on YouTube channel? Where else can people track you down? Or
Okay.
can
My
contact you?
website is www.deer- which is the little dash, john.net. Or if you just Google my name, John Eberhart, I'm sure to pop up. And I also do whitetail workshops on this property, and then also at Jay's is day 2 in the seminar room. And those are in March and April 2021. I haven't put the dates on, but those will be on my website when those are available. And those are two-day workshops. One day in the field, and the next day in a seminar room. And other than that, that's about it.
Yeah, appreciate the time.
Yeah, certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure too.